In this movie, we're going to look at the component-based stair. Revit has two kinds of stairs, and in the previous movie, we looked at the sketch-based stair, and this time around, we're going to look at the component-based stair. Now, in some ways, the component-based stair is a little bit more robust than the sketch-based stair, and so I'd like to focus on some of those differences between the two. I'm in a file called Component Stairs, and one of the differences that we have between component and sketch-based stair is a component-based stair can be built in 2D or 3D, or you can work in both views simultaneously. So let me demonstrate here. I'm currently in a floor plan level 1, but also in this exercise file, I have a view here called 3D stair section. I'm going to double-click and open that up. Zoomed in a little too close there. Let's zoom it out just so you can see. And this is a cropped view of the lobby area that we were looking at in the plan view. Now, I'll talk about how I created this view and the cutaway views in a future chapter, but for right now, we're just going to use the one that's already here in the exercise file. If I go to the View tab, I can tile these two windows, this 3D view and the plan view, together on the screen at the same time. And I can do that here with the Window Tile button, or I can type WT, which is the keyboard shortcut. I'm just going to adjust both of these views so that we can zoom in a little bit and see what we're doing. And we're going to build the stair in this general location. I like to build the stair kind of off to the side first and then move it into position. I typically find that a little bit easier to do. So we're going to go to the Architecture tab. And here on the Circulation panel, click the drop down next to Stairs and make sure you're choosing Stair by Component. Now, the component-based stair is kind of similar to the sketch-based stair in that we go into this mode and everything sort of grays out. But instead of sketching two-dimensional sketches, you're now really sketching with 3D components. So up here on the ribbon, you can see that we've got a Run tool active, and I'm drawing a straight run. I'm going to accept both of those options, but you could do a spiral stair or you could do winder stairs. Those are some additional choices. Over here in the options bar, you have several choices for location line. And I want to show you what a few of these look like. So, run center is probably the most obvious. Let me just click a point here in the middle of the lobby and start to move the mouse. And you can see that that location line is right down the center. But if I zoom in just a little bit and change to either left or right here, notice that the location line shifts out to the outside edge of the run itself, but it's still inside of the support. If you go to either left or right support, then it goes to the outside edge of the support itself. So you could use any one of these location lines in the stairs you're building. In this case, I'm going to go with support left, zoom back out a touch, and I'm going to accept all the other defaults here, 3 foot wide, automatic landing, and I'm going to draw about half of the risers to start with. So it says 9 created, 9 remaining. I'll click a point. Notice that the stair appears immediately in the 3D view as well as the plan view. In addition to that, notice that these two numbers appear here, 1 and 9, indicating for me that that's riser 1 and that's riser 9. So we get a little bit more visual feedback as we're working. Now I'm going to make sure I'm lined up with the first run, click a point, draw over here to the left, and create the rest of the run of stairs. And that'll give me risers 10 through 18. Now let's go ahead and finish that and see what that gives us. So I'm going to click the Finish Edit Mode button here, and we get a warning message generated from Revit. Now, the warning messages that appear here in the lower corner that have this yellow tint to them, you can actually ignore. If I were to just click anywhere on screen, that message would go away. But what the message is telling me is, if I zoom in over here on the 3D view, is it doesn't like the way this railing is turning the corner. The rail there, I don't know if you can see, it's a little disjointed right in that location there. So it's not a continuous railing. Now, there's a few ways you could potentially solve that. One would be to try and modify the railing type itself, but another would be to modify the stair geometry. So in this case, I'm going to actually modify the landing here on the stair to give that railing a little bit more room. So to do that, I'm going to click the stair, choose the Edit Stairs button, and that puts me back into the build mode. I'm going to select my landing, zoom in a touch, and you'll notice that there's these triangle grips that appear around the perimeter of the landing. I can take any of those grips and drag them to reshape the landing. So I'm going to start dragging this one, and I want it to go 1 foot, but you can see I'm having a tough time getting it to snap to that. So that dimension that appears there is bold, and I can actually start to type, and the number that I type will go right into that bold dimension. We call that a listening dimension. So I'm going to just type the number 1, press enter, and this extension right here will be 1 foot. Then I'm going to do it again down here, And this time I want 1'6", and you see that it's snapping to that on its own. So I don't need to type this time, but certainly you could type it in if you choose to. So let's go ahead and click finish on that and see what that gives me. Now notice that this time the warning was not generated. And if I hold the shift key down and drag the wheel here in the 3D, you can see that I have a nice continuous railing now. So that takes care of that problem. Now, the next thing I want to look at is shaping the stairs a little bit more to my liking. So I'm going to select the stair again and return to the edit stairs. The first thing I want to look at is the distance between the two runs. Right now, they're somewhat random because when I placed it, I didn't really pay attention to how far apart they were. Now, you can select the run and you can easily move it, but again, I'm still moving it somewhat randomly. But notice that the other components all adjust. The supports get longer, the landing adjusts. Well, I can use the temporary dimensions that you see on screen here to manipulate it very precisely, or I can even draw my own dimension to move it very precisely. So I'm going to come up here on the ribbon and choose the Align Dimension button. The shortcut for that is DI. And then I'm going to highlight one of the edges of the run. Now I want to look at the tooltip and make sure that it says Runs. If I press my Tab key, it switches to Supports. I don't want supports. So if you see supports on your message, press Tab until it says Run. And then you click, and then on the same thing on the other side. I want to make sure it says Run, and then I'm going to click, and then I'll place the dimension over here somewhere. Click the Modify tool to cancel out. Now when I select either of the runs, this dimension will light up as a temporary dimension, and I can click in there and put in a new value. I'm going to do 0.8, or you can type 8 inches, and that's going to pull those much closer together to make them 8 inches apart. Now, the other modification that I want is I want these two runs to be unequal. Let's look at a couple more grip controls that we have on the runs themselves. So I'm going to select the first run here, the upper one, and look here at the very end. You'll see two small grip points. There's a triangle-shaped one and a round-shaped one. Now, if you drag the round-shaped one, notice that that actually had the effect of removing risers from the stair. And this number confirms that by starting now at number 3. Risers 1 and 2 haven't been placed yet, and the stair is kind of floating up in the air. So I'm going to undo that with Control Z. If I click the run again and use the triangle this time, if I were to drag to the right, you'll see the risers that I'm removing get added to the other run. If I were to drag to the left, you'll see the risers that I'm adding get taken away from the other run. So I'm going to drag to the left and add 2 risers, and notice that this run here shortens as a consequence. Furthermore, the landing actually had to come and raise up higher in order to accommodate that change. So this is one of the benefits of the component-based stair, is that all the parts and pieces are connected together. And if you start making manipulations to one of the pieces, it will often have an impact on the others. So let's deselect that, click the Finish Edit mode, and see what that gives us. You can now see that I've got a nice long run here, and then a landing, and then a shorter run. The only thing that I still need to do is, if I zoom out here, I want to actually enter the stair here and wrap around to here, because up here in the floor plan where I'm going to place it, the balcony is closer to the wall. I don't have to build the stair all over again. It turns out that if you click on it, there's this small little grip right here that will flip the direction of the stair. And if I just click that, you're going to see the whole thing reverse. And now we're starting with a short run, going to a landing, and then it goes up the long run. And notice the landing adjusted accordingly. So the final step is to put the stair in location where it needs to be. To do that, I need a guideline over here. So I want to make sure that nothing is selected. Over here on the Properties palette, I'm going to scroll down and turn on the underlay for level 2. I'm going to use the reflected ceiling plan orientation, and a small gray line will appear right there. All I need to do now is select the stair, go to my Move tool, snap to an endpoint here, and snap to another endpoint right there. The stair fits nicely into that location. Let's take a look at it in both views. Hold the Shift key down and do a little bit of orbiting here, and zoom in and take a look at it over here. So that completes our component-based stair. And as you can see, There's a lot of similarities to the sketch-based stair, but there's also a lot of distinct advantages to the component-based stair as well. Chief among them being that if you manipulate one of the components, all of the other components will react in kind and manipulate accordingly.